Item 9F, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an authorization to execute an economic development agreement by and among Sunset at Broken Arrow LLC and the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority and the City of Broken Arrow. Jennifer Rush.
Thank you. I believe the city manager would like to make some comments before I begin.
Sure. If I may, Mayor, members of council, good evening. I do have some opening comments, and as I mentioned to all of you, we have a presentation that we would like to give to the governing body this evening with regard to the economic development agreement that's before you. You've heard me say this for a little over 8 years now, that the city's #1 role as it relates to economic development really, and you saw this earlier this evening, is really to create and maintain an environment that promotes private investment. I mean, the council members understand, as well as our EDC chamber, is that the job growth in your community, the prosperity in your community comes from partnerships with the private sector. Keeping with that responsibility, the administration is pleased to present to the council an agreement for what I consider to be a major economic development opportunity in the southeast part of a committee, which means should council enter this agreement, it's going to be a benefit to the entire community. In summary, before the council for your consideration is an agreement creating another public-private partnership between the city and the entity known as Sunset at Broken Arrow LLC to bring to our community a 12,500 seat capacity outdoor amphitheater that will provide a wide array of live musical entertainment events within our city. The proposed site for the venue is our events park or land adjoining the park, and as the council members know, as we've talked about in previous meetings, we are negotiating for the acquisition of that land at this time. Over the last 2.5 months, city officials have spent considerable amount of time and effort working with the representatives from Sunset at BA LLC on the specific details of an agreement that's before you this evening. The said agreement, which is very detailed, outlines the terms of the agreement, the benchmarks, and the deliverables required of each party. At this time, I'd like to ask the council's permission to have several individuals involved with the project to come forward and make a presentation or two with regard to where we are with the project, and this includes a representative from the developer to be able to talk about the private side of this partnership and then give the council members an opportunity to ask any additional questions you may have. And if that's fine, Mayor, I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Rush. Okay. Okay.
Perfect. So good evening again. I'm excited to be before you for this opportunity. That is really a transformational economic opportunity for Broken Arrow. Although there's been many city staff that have worked on this project over the last 2.5 months, I would say there's only probably one other person in this room that's so well versed in this project, and that would be the city manager. And so the city manager, we had quite a few economic development projects that have approached us within the last couple months. And so over the past couple months, I've enjoyed being in economic development meetings with him, learning from him, and I just want to say I appreciate your leadership, guidance, and support on this project because it was definitely an economic journey together, and so I really thank you. I also want to point out and thank every single counselor that has spent time in one-on-one meetings. This is not necessarily, this has been something that has been presented and discussed, and a lot of the public doesn't realize that you all are volunteers, that you do this work for free, like Commerce likes to say. And so you spend a lot of your time meeting with staff and talking about projects and really having a passion for Broken Arrow. So I just want to say thank you to you guys as well. And quickly, originally I'd written down a whole bunch of names that were involved in this project, and we talked about, we don't need like an Academy nomination speech to thank everybody, but I just really want to, for public record, thank every department that has been instrumental in getting us to this point, because there's been several departments that have worked on this project, and I think that's important to note. So the city manager's office, the legal department, engineering and construction, finance, police and fire, community development, parks, IT, the clerk's office, the assistant city managers, Norm Stevens and Kenny Schwab, and you guys get double exclamation marks for helping with this project. And then also Nate Ellis, who I saw spoke in the door. We spent countless of hours going back and forth with this economic development agreement and negotiations. So as you can see, there's several people that have been involved in this project, and so I just want to thank them because it truly takes a village, and a project of this magnitude takes a lot of people to bring in their expertise. So real quickly, I just want to include some brief background on how we came here and where this project came from. So I first spoke to Mr. Robert Mudd a couple years ago, and he'll be up here to present. And we just kind of stayed connected about certain projects and things that could happen in Broken Arrow at some point. Notes Live, and I'll refer to them going forward as Sunset of Broken Arrow because that's how they're referred to in the agreement. They approached Broken Arrow in May of this year with a proposal for 4,500 to 8,000 seat outdoor amphitheater. So there's a story behind that as well as this project has grown. So I spent time with Mr. Spurgeon and Norm Stevens, and we thought about where's a good location for this, because obviously, you know, there's things that go noise and traffic and those type of things that we see. Mr. Spurgeon, he suggested, hey, let's go look over at the Events Park. And so we started investigating that. It was actually perfect because I started digging up a lot of public records and a lot of proposals and master plans for the events park. And the 2011 master plan for the events park always included an amphitheater at that park. And there were several public meetings and several public comment as well. So we had the opportunity, the city manager and Norm Stevens and I, we had the opportunity to conduct a site visit with the Notes founder and CEO, J.W. Roth, and his team around the events park. Over the next few months, the company spent time evaluating their potential site locations, and the city, through our partners at the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, spent time completing due diligence. I want to thank Jennifer Conway and Nick Duffel and their team. They completed due diligence looking at the company, which included interviewing other cities and economic organizations in which Notes has completed other projects. They reviewed economic impact analysis, and so Mr. Mudd will come up and speak here in a little bit, and I've had a sneak peek at his presentation, so he'll talk to you more about his company and other existing venues and the projects that they have completed. As Sunset continued their research into the Broken Arrow market, the footprint of the amphitheater began to grow. And so it started out at 4,500 to 8,000 seats, and as they continued the research, they realized that the regional market around Broken Arrow could support what is now considered before you a 12,500 seat amphitheater. So let's talk about numbers, and they're big numbers, and these are the numbers that I know people are interested. So Notes will provide a minimum of a $71 million investment into the project. The project is projected to have a total annual economic impact of over $211 million to Broken Arrow. That's annually, so direct and indirect. The project will employ 741 jobs during the construction period, and upon completion, it will provide 86 direct full-time positions with annual payroll of approximately $3.5 million. It will support an additional 154 indirect jobs with an annual payroll of $4 million. The projected capital investment is expected to generate over $900,000 in new ad valorem, and as we discussed, the ad valorem would not be included in this TIF, so that's money benefiting Wagner County, the Wagner County Health Department, Broken Arrow Public Schools, Tulsa Tech, and the city. The project further anticipates the generation of approximately $85.5 million in annual taxable sales, so very significant, and that is with ticket, food, and beverage. According to the agreement before you this evening, construction is projected to be completed by December 31st, 2025. Then beginning a full year after that completion, the amphitheater guarantees a minimum of 45 shows per year. Right now, they're projecting about 50, 55, 60, and I'll let Bob speak about that. So where's the public-private partnership piece, as Mr. Spurgeon mentioned? In order to provide the best experience for those visiting, Sunset has requested the city to provide 3,360 parking spaces. Also, enhanced egress, ingress to ensure traffic moves quickly. We want a good experience. We want people to want to come back again and not get stuck in traffic on their way out. Our engineers estimate improvements to be $18 million to $25 million. And the improvements will also strongly enhance the total usage of the events park as well. So Kenny will come up after Mr. Mudd to discuss more details as far as the infrastructure improvements. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert Mudd. He's Senior VP of Real Estate Development for Notes Live. He's been an absolute wonderful partner to work with. Sometimes in economic development, you're not always blessed with who wants to do a project, but he's been always available by phone and email, weekends, evenings. And actually yesterday I looked in my phone and he made my favorites list. So he's right next to my husband on my favorites list. So we've considerable time speaking about this project, and I appreciate his availability. So he's going to provide a presentation, and then Kenny will talk about infrastructure, and all would like to come back up to talk about next steps.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, and Mr. Spurgeon, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm really grateful for it. I'll start by saying, and I'll touch on it again before I'm done, I've worked all over the United States, from medium-sized to large-scale hospitality and entertainment venues with municipalities. And there are nice people everywhere, and there's sometimes competent people. And you guys are very fortunate and blessed to have an amazing group of people, from civil engineering to public works, to economic development, to legal, and led by your city manager and Jennifer. It's just been a pleasure beyond enjoying working with them, having a high degree of competency, which gives us a lot of confidence in coming to Broken Arrow with our project. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Notes Lab. Notes Lab is the holding company. We are based out of Colorado Springs. Our origins go back to both restaurants, entertainment, and now large-scale amphitheaters back to 2015. And we've put together an exceptional team, and you're going to start seeing sunsets kind of scatter across the United States over the next 10 years pretty quickly. Give a quick overview of that. We have a very experienced team. We've got folks from that have come from the largest promoters and venue management companies in the United States that we've put into our executive team, deep industry experience. We have very strong financial health. One of our strengths is that the primary leadership comes from a long history of private equity and has a strong track record of succeeding. We have a strong asset base. You will see in our financials that we are very cautious on our debt. We have developed capacities to raise capital that bring great strength over the long haul in terms of how we can operate our business. We are going very strategically in the way that we expand our markets. This corridor of Broken Arrow and going back into Oklahoma City as well is an underserved market. And if you look at the trends that are happening in hospitality today, we are sitting in a perfect location to serve not only the Tulsa MSA, but we would anticipate, as I'll share in a moment, a significant amount of license plates from out of state coming in to see the type of talent that we're going to bring into this location. We have identified the South and Southeast United States as significant growth areas, and Oklahoma City and Broken Arrow are target markets, which is why we're here today. This is a picture of our team. We've got folks that actually have deep roots here that have long been on our team. Gary Tedder grew up in Tulsa, went to school here. His son Ryan Tedder is the lead singer of One Republic, and they're from just down the street. So we've got some deep roots in this region as well. Our consultant team is world class. Whenever you put together a large venue like this, which we are not putting together what you'll hear in the industry, sheds. That's not who we are. You will see anywhere we go that we are going to provide a world-class hospitality experience. And one of the other things that you're going to see is fire. We just believe that some good music and a fireplace tends to lower the rancor that we live in today. And we've incorporated that into everything that you've done. If you come to Colorado Springs, we have 92 fire pit suites being constructed in that location. We will have substantially more here. The location that I just opened up in my backyard in Gainesville, Georgia, which hosted Ronnie Millsap last weekend, has fire at every corner. And we gather around and we create community as a primary focus of our hospitality engagements. And it's done because we've got a great team. We are good at the hospitality, but you've got to have great architects, great traffic management, and great sound and acoustics. And it is important not just from the hospitality experience that our customers, when they come to an event, experience, but also from the neighbors. I love the site that we're located, and all of the sites that we are all around the United States, from Murfreesboro to Gainesville to Colorado Springs to Oklahoma City and others to be announced soon. This is the best suited site for an outdoor amphitheater that we have, in my view, from two perspectives. One, its location the proximity to getting in and out, and the second is the fact that it's located not close significantly to residential zones. So it's already a park that existed that has a history of events in it. Our team includes BCA Studios and a sub-team of that have worked on some of the biggest hospitality projects around the world. They've already been here to see the site and are in the process of laying that out. Kimley Horn, there are two sides to that. One is the civil engineering side. We have also been working with Tanner Consulting on the civil engineering side. That is a local civil engineering firm. But Kimley also has a traffic and parking engineering that is world class. They do the Super Bowl. They've done our traffic and engineering in Colorado Springs. They've done the World Series. They're the best to partner with. And then we bring in acousticians that don't just help make sure that we have the best environment to listen to live music, but that we are considerate of the neighbors around us, that we create an architectural approach that minimizes the impact in any negative nature to any neighborhoods that would be in the proximity of this venue. We have partnered in Colorado Springs with the Anschutz Group, AEG, as you may have heard it. They are the largest venue manager in the world. They, along with Live Nation, are two of the largest programmers. We have not contracted with them here yet, but it will likely be a partner of that nature that would be a partner in the location here in Broken Arrow. And they are responsible through their ticketing agency of selling nearly 50% of the entertainment tickets worldwide. So not only are we bringing our unique approach to, which is new and fresh to this space, but we have long-term partners that have proven themselves to manage this with excellence over time. We have a number of different concepts that you can go visit today. We have Bourbon Brothers Smokehouse and Tavern. Those are operating in Colorado and Georgia today. It is a place that we built for our families. I don't know any other way to say it. It's got great food, it's got a great environment, it's got fireplaces and a nice, comfortable place if you wanted to have a beer in the evening. We have the Boot Barn Halls, which are intimate boutique music venues, seated 500 to 600 folks. We do 2 to 3 concerts in those venues every week, and it also serves these local communities as a place for businesses to hold conferences and do community events as well. The marquee as we go forward are our Sunset Amphitheaters. Our marquee that is under construction today is in northern Colorado Springs. It got the name of the Sunset because it sits at the base of Pikes Peak, America's mountain, over its left shoulder, and it has the Air Force Academy over its right. It is located at the exit for the northern entrance exit of the U.S. Air Force Academy. And so we called it the Sunset because we're going to fire up the music about the time the sun sets over Pikes Peak in the evening. And it has 92 fire pit suites, and in the back of it is the Roth Seafood and Chop House, which is, you can see pictured in the lower right-hand corner, which is a hospitality and an event facility that also hosts Brohan's Bar and Roth Seafood and Chop House. It is going to be what has been described in Rolling Stone magazine and others, the biggest new venue in music in the coming years. From a routing perspective, we have a bunch of criteria, but primary to that criteria is looking at underserved markets that have at least 1 million people in their metropolitan service area. And what you will see with these acts that these promoters route is they may play Red Rocks on a Thursday or Friday night, come into Fiddler's Green, which is in South Denver, and then come into what will be the Sunset to play. So they'll hit 3 locations. Coming out of Colorado Springs, the next location with an asset of an outdoor amphitheater of this nature is going to be Phoenix, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or Kansas City. And in the midst of that, which is the strategy that we're undertaking, are significant markets. What you will find is that since COVID, hospitality, live entertainment, and experiences are 1, 2, 3 in the growth of industry in the United States. And we intend to serve that by bringing world-class venues to metropolitan areas like Broken Arrow to serve the broader Tulsa market, also Missouri, and the Panhandle and other areas where you'll see nearly 25% of the license plates coming into the shows and spending their dollars in Broken Arrow from out of state. So our approach is to develop strong relationships with local leaders. There are a lot of folks that we could do business with, but this is an asset of $70 million that our company is investing. And if we don't feel strongly that we've got a relationship with the local community that sees it as an asset for their community and not just another dot on the map that is going to be contended against, then we're not going to go there. And so the longstanding discussions that have been taking place with Broken Arrow has brought us back here time and time again until ultimately it became clear that this is the best location for us in this region of Oklahoma. We always make an effort to use local banks with the assumption that we get the approval to move forward, which I'm hopeful for. You will see us moving very quickly to establish local banking relationships, and you will see advertising and our presence of our leadership team here almost immediately. The final piece of that is I just want to say again, Broken Arrow has demonstrated exceptional support and collaboration. What would typically take, where we really initiated this effort in June, with a municipality 6 months to a year, we had a very aggressive schedule, and Michael said, let's go do this and see if it makes sense for both of us. And we both, as they say in Kentucky, put our foot into it. And we stand here today with what I believe to be a very solid plan moving forward. So this project will be $12,500. You might ask why we arrived on that. When you begin to look at the nature of the acts that we have confirmed that we can route through here, through these routed shows, and the economic dynamics of that and the likelihood that it can be supported by population, we are going to be routing the acts that are going to be coming out of the likes of the Toyota Music Factory in Dallas and the amphitheaters that I've discussed, like Red Rocks in Colorado Springs. And so getting into that 12 to 12,500 allows us to route the folks that you listen to on the radio through Broken Arrow on a consistent basis. We are guaranteeing 45 shows a year. We think it will be more in the neighborhood of 55 to 60. We have a much longer touring season here in Oklahoma than we do in Colorado Springs, and we've been able to get that guarantee from our promoting partners there. It can also be, we have a couple of other relationships that we've worked to establish. The college that's just across the street, we've met with them on a number of occasions. In fact, we met with them today to talk about some of the nature of the relationships and actually the potential of their hospitality school, developing talent that we would need to serve what is going to be a vibrant place of employment. I have met individually with each of the Wagner County commissioners and talked through all the questions that they've had, and want to make sure that if there are questions or concerns or ideas, that we get those on the table, early in the process. This is a general rendering of what it would look like, and one of the things that's critical with these amphitheaters is that you can have capacity for parking that is usable for other purposes. Just building a large parking lot, which for a 12,000 person amphitheater, you need about 3,300 to 3,400 parking spots for 55 uses a year, makes it unviable. But given the nature of the use in the park and the fact that the city will be able to use this the other 310 days a year or whatever it is, makes this very attractive. In addition to that, its proximity to the parkway and our ability to direct what is the high-frequency sounds down the parkway and away from residential units, we believe sets this up well to not be a nuisance to the local community, which is often the concerns. Setting all that aside, we will not complete a project where we can't guarantee ourselves that it can handle the traffic safely, and that we can't be good neighbors to the people that are around us. And hence, why we have Kimley Horn and LSTN as consultants that will be with us all along the way as we move forward here. So with that, I will pause, and if there's no further, or if there's any questions, be happy to field those questions.
No question, but it's been a pleasure working with you, and I mean, this is just so exciting. It's an economic transformation for our city, and it's just so exciting to think about what this could be. And it seems like and Jennifer, mentioned the departments that have worked on this. And obviously you've been right there with them all along the way. It's like every single department in our city has been involved in this. And I know that you guys have worked tirelessly for, like you said, 2.5 months. I don't know that like something this magnitude has come together so smoothly. It just is it's just really neat, and it's been a pleasure watching this unfold. So thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. And the collaboration that's taking place, some of your folks are here today. We're talking about, which GCs should we use? Should we use the same general contractors? What about the civil engineering firms? We want to put together a team that maximizes the potential of not just what you're creating on the events park, but having it integrated into, a world-class entertainment facility.
Absolutely.
And they've been a pleasure to work with.
And then we met with, the new president of NSU, and his vision for this is so exciting as well. He's thrilled about this project, so.
One of the things that we talked about today, you will see in Colorado Springs and Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where we've got the wheels in motion on the development that's a little bit ahead of this, is there will be a lot of development around that. And they were so excited about that because one of the constraints that the college expressed to us is a lack of gas stations, a lack of places in close proximity to go get something to eat.
Sure.
That's going to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Based on what we've seen.
I feel like the hardest thing for this project for me was to keep it a secret for so long, because we were just so excited. And I mean, I know you've bragged on our city, which they deserve it because they do a great job, but I just felt at ease, even our very first meeting with you all, that you had your stuff together, like your ducks in a row. And that, as a counselor, definitely was easier to jump on board for sure. So, as I said earlier, my parents live in that neighborhood, so I had a lot of questions because I didn't want my Sunday dinners to turn out to be not so fun. So
No, you should.
anyway, I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad that I kept bugging Jennifer to keep contacting you guys from the very beginning. I hear they're still interested. Can you reach out again and see what they're thinking? So, anyone else have any?
Yeah, I would just comment too, I'm extremely excited. As somebody mentioned, the amphitheater theme was started from this property, was first purchased and part of it donated by the Anderson family who own that farm there. And so to get this amphitheater of this magnitude, really pleased with. Plus, I think with the purchase of the land, I'm really excited about that because that still then would give us continue using more of our parkland for a park,
And for other festivals that might
Exactly.
take
Yeah,
place.
in case other big places and, for the kids to run around in the park itself. So by moving it north, I'm just really excited about it doing that.
And keeping the nature of the environment around that pond or that lake that's located there, and the additional parking and what it can benefit to the, whether it's the Balloon Festival or the Scottish Festival, I think it just has a lot of potential to expand over time.
Exactly, right.
And if I'm not mistaken, is this the largest P3?
Yes. Probably by double.
Yeah. Public-private partnership, by the way.
Just so the council knows, I spoke to the organizer of Scott Fest yesterday and updated them on the project and the fact that we'll have one of the measurables or the deliverables is construction schedules, should council approve in the next couple of months to determine how that would play into the potential construction for next year's event. Also spoke to Kurt Klein with but Camp Bandage, and they're actually going earlier than they normally do, so I don't anticipate there being any issues with them being able to, and if he was very cooperative that we needed to do somewhere else as a result of this. So obviously the reaction and support was very positive.
And I want to say too, I appreciate you reaching out to Camp Bandage and Scottish Fest and Gates Way because, we want them to stay in our city, of course, and be a great partner with this too. And I talked to Kurt today too, and he's really excited, but he appreciated the phone call, absolutely.
Well, at this time, if there are no other questions, I would like to bring Kenny Schwab up to talk more specifically about the public portion of this project. Council has heard this in terms of the improvements and the potential costs. I think it's important that we also let the public hear what those are because they are outlined in the agreement specifically, so I'd like for him to talk about that to the governing body.
Thank you.
Sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, absolutely. This is very exciting. Actually, if you could go back to slide maybe 13, Yeah, 13, that's actually a good one. So let me quickly talk about certain items that are, as Mr. Spurgeon said, part of the public improvements, what we're taking care of. First and foremost, we have made an offer on the 41 acres to the north. So in this picture, it's right where the amphitheater is shown. It's west of the school, north is to the left, and, well, it might be, you're right, my left. That's where the amphitheater is going. That 41 acre is privately owned. It was always intended as part of the events part. As we move forward, we thought about purchasing it. We have an offer already on the table to the individual. We've met with them, negotiating it. I do expect a counter offer pretty soon. So I just wanted to make sure that that is in, that ball's rolling. Now, with respect to the public improvements, we've got on-site improvements and off-site. You can see, this is a great picture. The light shaded area is where the events park is. You can kind of see Gary Street that runs into the school, but you can see the extension of internal street network. We've got new roads. We also have to widen some of the roads to make sure that we have that traffic management plan that Mr. or Bob talked about. Make sure that we can get them in, get them out. So we've got a loop around. There's parking that he talked about. There'll be stormwater, drainage, detention, whether it's underground or on site. We'll have to address that. There'll be a water loop. We got to extend. All the water line in the events park is owned by the city of Broken Arrow, but we purchase with meters through rural water. So we can, if we purchase this, we can extend the water line. We'll have to extend sanitary sewer. So all those public improvements on site. A couple other things I want to talk about. I like it. This one actually shows it. You see the connection from up on the screen here is where the Challenger Sports Complex is. You see the parking lot. You see the road crossing through the trees and tying into the loop road. Rocky's building that. He's already got the bridge. He's already got his team scheduled. They've already cleared through there, and we have got it cleared through the Corps. We've got the permit to cross the creek, the 404 permit. So we will be constructing that probably about 4 months. He's already started on it. We figure by first of the year that connection will be done. That's important as we move forward in construction on all of this to make sure that that connection's in, because there's a school in there. They still got to be able to access. Another potential ingress egress is the next item that we tabled earlier, 9C. We have a road going from Gary, and this will be up on the very east of the school, and it'll cross the railroad and tie into Washington or 91st. We've talked about this before, the ODOT, Oklahoma Department of Transportation, at Highway 51 and 91st Street at that point. They have a signal plan for that, realignment of the intersection. They should bid that next spring. March is the latest I've heard. And our proposed improvements will tie into that. So we've been working with ODOT, we've been working with the railroad. So those improvements are already underway and planned. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure that everyone knows that, because it sounds like, well, y'all have been talking about this forever then. And
I'm going to, yes.
Okay.
I was going to address that on 9C after this, so you're spot on. So those are some of the off-site. We have an entryway down in New Orleans. We got to make sure that it's wide enough to get traffic in and out and get it flowing. There will be improvements along New Orleans. And talking to engineering, they're actually going to have a future lane that would head back to the west towards NSU and tie into where the that would be the southbound ramp. I had to think about that in my head. Southbound ramp ties into New Orleans. So we actually want to widen all the way to the events park there. But we also have a contingency plan. What happens if that takes too long? There's a center turn lane. We can restripe and still make that more effective and more efficient. So that's already underway. And one of the other things that we talked about and worked with Scott Carr's team is, what about Fiverr? What about Cox? What about Windstream? What about PSO? ONG? Is all the other private utilities there? We have some challenges with Windstream or Cox, and so he's already working on that. So all of those improvements are already in process. We've thought about, and I just want to thank engineering, specifically Charlie Bright. He did a whole lot of heavy lifting on this to figure out, is this a $15 million, a $25 million, a $30 million? He worked tirelessly on that. Zach Smith worked alongside with him on that out of engineering. Of course, finance, always with Cindy Arnold and Tom Cook. And like I said, IT, Scott Carr and Kimber Putman did a lot of work on this to figure out what's there and what's not. And Matt Hendren and Parks as well. And honestly, legal. They did a lot too, Danny and Trevor. So, I mean, we could stand up here and thank everybody, but those people did a whole lot of work constantly on it. So that pretty well covers the city aspect. And like I said, there's already some contracts in place. I'll talk on those. Those are the ones that we tabled, and we can talk about those after this. So I believe I turn it back over to Jennifer.
Jennifer, just one point is that we have to have a second form of ingress and egress. Until that road is completed, talk about what the plan is, Kenny.
Okay, excellent. So to handle almost 2,400 vehicles, you need a plan of attack. We're going to widen the street into the park, the main street in the park, to handle a little bit more flow, but we need more ingress and egress, as Mr. Spurgeon said. So right now, Rocky's connection from the Challenger Sports Complex into the park, that can be another form of ingress and egress because it goes out on the eastern side of the park. But we still have Gary Street. We've got the gate there that we opened up and go through the industrial park and go out on 219th. So by January, we'll actually have three. And then hopefully on the next item, when I come back and talk about that, you'll see that there's a potential to have a really good ingress and egress.
Any questions of the council members regarding public infrastructure?
I will like to add partnerships. We talk about that all the time. Broken Arrow is unlike any other community I've ever worked with. We have already talked to OTA. We have already talked to ODOT. We have talked to Rural Water 4. We have talked to Wagner County, both commissioners and the county engineer. We know their schedule of their improvements on New Orleans. They've already, so remember we did New Orleans right in front of the Vince Park? Wagner County has already advertised and it's gone to ODOT for award. The project's already been awarded to pick up at 215th and go all the way to Oneida Road. That project should start early 2024, so it'll be done before this is over. So that will be complete.
Okay.
All right, thank
We
you.
talked to the school district.
Yes.
Right.
We did.
that.
I've spoken to the superintendent as well as the president of the board, and I communicated with them yesterday to let them know council is considering this, and obviously they want to be kept abreast of things that are going on because they have the school there. And what's interesting is, if thinking positively, when the bonds pass in November, the pod concept is actually there could be construction at the school there. I've learned.
Yes.
Also, with so many events that happen at the school, especially like parent-teacher conferences in the evening, so having that schedule is going to be very important so they can schedule their meetings with teachers. So really, it's logistical things that are most important to them right now.
And to that point, we have talked to Rosalind. She's over the transportation, so she's aware of it. And just chiming in what he said, we are trying to meet with the principal of the school just so they don't get shocked by the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you guys heard a lot this evening, a lot of exciting things. I just wanted to kind of follow up with, should council approve this agreement, what are the next steps? Because this agreement just really gets us a toe over the starting line. I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting and things that need to continue to go forward with this. So first step would be creation of a sales tax only TIF to support paying for the infrastructure needed. And so Nate Ellis is not finished working with us yet. He's done a great job. I will tell his secret that he did work very quickly on this economic development agreement, and he did a great job at it. We also need to have continued meetings with Wagner County Commissioners and Wagner County Economic Authority to move forward with potential economic agreements with those entities. This project significantly impacts Wagner County in general, and we do have those economic impact numbers as well. So we want to see how they would like to partner and if they would like to partner on this project. We also, very important, and Notes has committed to this, and they've done this very well in Colorado Springs, is holding a public meeting to be held, in the the next 60 to 90 days to provide information to residents regarding kind of the finalized plans. And notice of that meeting, letters will be distributed to homes within the area that are in close proximity. I just want to explain real quickly, some people might say, well, why aren't we having the meeting right now to talk to the neighbors? There's a lot of what ifs and questions that we don't have answered. So as Bob presented, is we have to determine, where exactly is that site going to be laid out? And then they can work with their team to find out how far does that noise travel. By that time, we'll have a construction timeline that we can present to neighbors and say, this is when this construction will occur, this is when this street will occur, and they can also have a timeline on their project. And so we want to have a complete timeline and a presentation to be able to present before we just arrive at a meeting. And so those are kind of the next steps. But I, again, want to thank you all for a lot of your involvement within this. I appreciate the support. I know that you guys were ready to tell everybody a couple months ago, and we just weren't there yet. We weren't there with an agreement, so I really appreciate it. Thanking the city manager again for working with me on this. I mean, he jumped right in and helped me, and he gave me the faith that he knew I could do it. So I appreciate that, and I'll turn it over to you so you can kind of wrap us up on this project.
Okay, if I may, Mayor, members of council. Thank you, Jennifer. Let me just add my appreciation to everyone that is guiding us to the proverbial starting line. Because when you look at this agreement, all the deliverables, that is essentially where we're at. Second, the council's approval of this agreement, as the mayor mentioned just a minute ago, would be the latest example of demonstrating the importance of public-private partnerships. And we know that for Bass Pro, for example, that's a perfect example of a public-private partnership that has done tremendous to help with the growth of our community. So to me, this is just another example of our philosophy that we understand the importance of the private sector. Also, council's talked quite a bit about the importance of trying to capitalize on the thriving culture and arts entertainment industry and how many dollars there are, because I've heard from many of you about the fact that the generations are changing in terms of where they want to spend their money. And Bob didn't really go into it that in depth, but they've looked at how each generation is spending their money, and arts and entertainment is extremely important to the younger generations that are basically in their earning years. And so trying to take advantage of that, this certainly demonstrates that. The third thing which council talks about a lot of times, and also the EDC talks about probably every day, is about job creation. And with this agreement and partnership, there's going to be short-term jobs, which Jennifer talked about, and there's going to be long-term jobs. The long-term jobs obviously are going to be in support of the venue. However, if you think about the number of events, the support for the traffic management that's going to be involved to help those that are going to be out there making sure everyone has a really good experience. The fourth thing is, not only is this going to be a great tourism attractor, but eventually it's going to put additional revenue, and it's not always about the revenue per se, it's about the experience, and residents have more money to spend their dollars locally, but eventually it's going to put the sales tax into the city's general fund, which helps in maintaining the high quality of life that we have in our community. I know that's important, and this is a major opportunity for us to do that. And so, for all these reasons that I mentioned earlier, and then those that have been presented, and Jennifer did talk about that, and it is difficult to hold a public meeting right now, because obviously we're not going to go spend dollars to develop, and neither is Notes Live going to go out and spend the money necessary to gather all the technical information to be able to address the questions the community may have. And so once we have all that information sometime later this year, we will be holding a public meeting, and Notes Live has agreed to facilitate that meeting. They have a professional company that helps them with addressing the company questions that folks may have from the community. So I'm excited about that partnership, and obviously I'm going to make it on a date that all the council members can be aware. We will notify everybody about the potential opportunity. So if you don't have any other questions, I would ask council's consideration of the agreement that's before you.
Any further questions?
I'll make a motion to authorize and execute an economic development agreement by and among Sunset at Broken Arrow LLC.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Very exciting. Yes. Good job, y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. Exciting. All right, so we're going to go back to the consent agenda, item 5E, approval of and authorization to execute amendment number 1 to professional consultant agreement with Kimley Horn for design. Okay. Charlie.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Spurgeon. This item, obviously the reason we tabled it is because it's directly related to the public infrastructure improvements that Mr. Schwab just told you about. Actually, I believe it's the last council meeting. This council already approved approximately $198,000, I believe, to start on the survey and the geotech of all of the area we're talking about. That's 101st Street, all of Events Park, all that, be boots on the ground, people out there surveying that in preparation that we need to start the design work. The amendment that's before you tonight, it's not how we would normally do a contract. Normally, I would get the whole proposal together and bring it to you and say, hey, this is going to be $1.5 million, $2 million, something like that. But the scale of what we're talking about is so massive, this contract's probably going to take me a month and a half to negotiate all the details out. But if we're going to hit that date of 2025, I need to be working now on the design. So what we're asking for tonight is $100,000 that the consultant can bill against hourly, not to exceed, to get started on design, and then we'll come back with a future amendment that'll be the rest of the lump sum for their design contract. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about that.
Any questions from?
I'll make a motion to approve amendment number 1 to the consultant agreement with Kimley Horn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have no preview ordinances. Wait, 9C.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
where do we
yeah.
go back? Oh, that's right. We were going to go
Don't
back
forget
up
it.
to 9C. We're all over the place tonight. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of authorization to execute amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors, Mr. Spurgeon. So item 9C is an amendment to an existing contract, and this is for that road that I talked about previously that runs north from Gary Street, east of Rosewood Elementary School. It's a proposed roadway that will cross the railroad, continue north, and tie into 91st Street, the ODOT improvements that I talked about a little bit at Highway 51. So in July of 2022, we hired HDR. We selected HDR because they're actually out of Omaha, Nebraska. They started in transportation. They're basically next door to Union Pacific Railroad. They work a lot hand in hand with Union Pacific. That was strategic on our part because we need coordination with Union Pacific. The contract was only for like $35,000 to do some conceptual layouts of the road that I kind of just talked about and actually get in front of Union Pacific to see if this is actually something that they would even consider. So in August, we turned in plans to Union Pacific in January, and by August, 8 months, they actually came out here with their consultants and said, yes, we're actually in favor of this. Shutting down 219th, which comes out of that business park, is a dangerous road. They said this is safer. It's right along the east side of the school. The school's in favor with it. They actually walked the site with Union Pacific, our consultant, and the city. So very good, and at that point in time, we came back and said, okay, this is a go. We need an amendment to the contract to do the full design. This was right before all the other stuff was taken off with Notes Live. So we were already moving forward for this. So tying in with Notes Live, this would be an incredible secondary or primary access in and out. We plan on 3 lanes, where the center lane will actually change direction. So if coming into the event, you would have 2 lanes in, 1 lane out, still got to have emergency access, and we still have to have access for the neighbors and the industrial park. So you still have to have access. And then after the event, you can flip that and have 2 lanes out, 1 lane in. Already talked it over with ODOT. They love the idea. They will work with us at the intersection to do whatever they need to do to make that work better. So the amendment before you is actually for full design. One other thing that we need to note here is the railroad is really, really concerned about the crossing. So right away, we're going basically 100 feet outside of right away on either side, making sure that crossing is established the way we want it, the way railroad wants it, so we can submit it to the railroad as quickly as possible. It generally takes a year for a railroad to actually go through that review process and permit. We actually have it scheduled right now under this agreement to have it submitted to the railroad probably January of 2024, so we can get moving as quickly as possible. Once you get outside of the railroad, they don't care about the road, so we can change whatever we need to slightly to make that work. Charlie had an idea that if we're going to do a construction manager on the on-site improvements, we may want to have 3 packages of design contracts, or not design contracts, but construction. So our consultant's actually going to design it in such a way that if we need to break it up, we can. All of this to expedite. What we want on Broken Arrow's side is we would love to have this thing in place before the first concert. That's a heavy, heavy lift with everything else going on out there at the park, plus potentially the school. Everybody is on board with this that we have talked to, everybody.
Yeah, this will be
ODOT,
huge for the school as well.
it's huge. School's on board with it. The industrial park to the east is on board with it. And I've told you once before, there is a home, a residential home in that industrial park. They're actually on board because it all goes to a signal. It all goes to a signal, so.
And citizens, I mean.
I'm
with
sorry?
Well, citizens bring kids to school, not just the school, but those citizens.
Absolutely.
They're going to be thrilled.
It's so much safer for the school, for everything out there. So the amendment, like I said, is to get the design moving and moving quickly.
You know, and as was mentioned, I'll be the vice mayor, made a comment to that, and you did too. This has been going on for several years. We call it the gate. It's the only gate we have in Broken Arrow. And we have fought over that gate. This summer, we left the gate open, but that intersection that's going to be closed was a dangerous intersection, and our police department recommended that those kids not be coming to school that way, or their parents, because there's a curve, there's a hill, and so we kept that gate up, and the industrial people were really upset, the manufacturers, because they couldn't get through there then, and that's what we wanted for the kids not to be able to do it. So that's been going on for several years, but this is going to work out perfect for our new amphitheater project. So
To your point, Councilor Parks, this is a crazy blend of traffic. So now you're going to have entertainment traffic, you have school, which is buses and riders dropping off, pickup, and you also have industrial, which are trucks. This road is crucial because it will actually, and the sports complex, it actually kind of splits that traffic, and we can manage it much, much better. So very excited about this.
I make a motion, we approve the execution of this amendment number 1 to the agreement for professional consulting services with HDR Engineering. I hit it.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny.